Hello and welcome back to GM Tips. GM Rick here. Today's topic, I'm going to do a little bit more for the newbies that are trying to DM and GM. Now, again, I'm going to focus some things definitely at Pathfinder today, but I'm also going to focus some things at DnD, and I'm going to focus on these two because there's so many systems you can learn. But the basics are applicable once you learn them to many different systems. So you're going to have to pick and choose and get to know your system. And I think there are some certain things that I want to really go over with beginning GMs and DMs, because you guys are the new crop that are going to be running the adventures. I'm what they would call a veteran, though I don't know how veteran I am. There are definitely Pathfinder GMs that have had much more time doing it than me. But as a overall DM GM, I am a veteran. I've had a lot of time. I started out with D&D back in the blue books, the blue basic books. I've run things like Pathfinder. I've run Gamma World, the very first Mutants and Masterminds, so first edition Mutants and Masterminds, Marvel Superheroes, Paranoia. I've done all the early games that have come out, many of them. Traveler, original Traveler, the D6 kind, and then the D20 Traveler. Done both. So I've had a lot of experience when it comes to different systems. Now, there's a lot of newer systems. I'm not going to go through all the newer systems that I've done. Let's just say this, though. As you're starting out, you need to get yourself a certain level of knowledge under you as a starting DM or GM. So before you run your first game, I will say this. Do some studying. You don't have to be a scholar. Like, for instance, with Pathfinder, there are 20-some-odd books. No one in their right mind expects you to understand, cover to cover, all of these books. In fact, it's going to take years. And I've heard some people say, well, you need to know your craft that well. I call BS on those GMs and DMs. And I love you guys, and if you're watching this, I call BS on you because none of us started that way. None of us started that way. Okay? We became that way after time, but we learned, we made our mistakes. We had people basically do things that were, we look back and go, oh crap, that was a mistake. Like yesterday, I caught an oh crap on myself. A perfect example. Undead. Okay, you've got your physical undead, and you've got what they call incorporeal, which are your ghosts, your ghasts, your ghosts, your wraths, your specters, your alephs, your shadows. Those are undead that have no physical material form. They are ectoplasm. Okay? But there's a rule of thumb to them. And then this is as a GM coming to understand your monsters or DM. Look under their special traits or subtype. Because under a subtype, they're going to list out what's common for that subtype. So incorporeal undead. One of the things that's common for them is that they can't be harmed by physical weapons. Magic weapons only do half damage. Okay? Now, they used to make that a rule where you hit 50% of the time and then did half damage. They've cleaned it up a little bit in Pathfinder and made it just half damage. You hit them, but you do half damage. You're not going to do much. Spells, kind of the same way. Any type of spell that's not a force-based spell. So, fire, cold, electricity does half damage to them, if damage at all. Some types of spells, like cold, don't do any damage to undead. So, you're going to get to know your creature types, and that's something that I'm going to say. And so, first thing as a beginning GM or DM, get to know the basics of an encounter play. All right? So, what does that mean? A round. Okay? So, what does initiative mean? What is a round? What happens in a round? What kind of actions can happen in a round? So, it's different. D&D, 5e, to Pathfinder, it's a little bit different. Rounds act similar because this is the nice thing about most role-playing games. A round is very similar. It is the players go, the monsters go. Or the monsters go, the players go. Or monster, player, depending on how the term initiative is. Now, initiative. Initiative is used in many systems. It's not used in every system, but we're going to focus on D&D and Pathfinder. So what is initiative? Initiative consists of your dexterity, because it's who's the quickest. I hate to say it, but it's who's the quickest to respond to the surprise. Plus your D20 roll. Now, in some cases, you have feats or skills that improve on this, or traits. There are different elements that factor into your characters, but you're going to have an initiative number. So you've got to have your players calculate what their initiative number is ahead of time on their character sheets. Then when they roll their die 20, they add that to it, and they go in that order. So, say Mary has a initiative of bonus of +6. Okay, where does she get a +6? And I'm using this. It's dexterity plus maybe a buff or some sort of a trait or some sort of a feat that gives her a little bit extra to her roll. She's got an 18 dex. She's got +4 for that. You look at your tables. Now, how do you determine that? You go to your stat tables and you can look down them. Now, players should do this in the beginning when they create their things. Most of the monsters will show you what the initiative number is for them. And they explain it in parentheses what the adders are that give them that initiative. So, Mary rolls an 18 plus, so she's got a +6 to initiative, rolls a die 20, gets a 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. The monster, the Lich, that Mary is facing along with her fellow players. The Lich has a +5 to its initiative. I'm just picking this out of the air, okay? It just says it under the thing. DM rolls the dice, rolls a natural 20. That's a 25. The Lich goes before Mary, okay? And so on and so on and so on. So the highest number goes first, and then you work your way down. Now, a good rule of thumb for you as a DM or GM. Write the order of who's got what. So the Lich got 25, Mary's got 22, Pete's got a 15, Jack's got a 5, and Alyssa has a 2. So you put all those down in their names. So I would put Lich, Mary, Jack, Alyssa, or, I gave the names, but on down to the lowest number. And that's how the order goes, unless a player does something unique. And there are rules that talk about that. They can do things like holding their action and wait on a certain round to occur before they do it. So that changes their melee then. So say Mary doesn't want to go on 22. She wants to hold her action to see what Jack does. So she can hold her action until after Jack goes, and that's her new order in the initiative. So that's how that shifts. Pretty simple, straightforward stuff, right? But understanding how the initiative works in the combat's important. So what's next? Then you have your action round, all right? Now, in Pathfinder, that consists of an attack action and a move action, okay? D&D is fairly similar to that with what they do. Now, what consists of it? Well, okay, an attack is a standard action. So is a move. But say somebody wants to do something out of the ordinary. So they don't just want to take one swing with their weapon, or they don't want to just cast one spell and then move. Now, some spells, you got to watch your spells, GMs. And this is where writing a list of what spells are what will help you. It is good to go through and print off a list of what spells take a full round to go off, what spells take a standard action, and what spells are quick action or immediate action. Because there are some spells that you just pop them off and it's just, it doesn't affect the round. It's a quick action or immediate action. And it happens right then and there. So they do have that. So keep that in mind that you want to know those things. So writing yourself a list of how long it takes to cast those spells is important for you. Now, let's be even more specific. Just write a list of the ones that are full round actions and which ones are quick actions, because everything else is going to be a standard. So you don't have to make this copious list of 500 spells. You just want the spells that take a whole round and the spells that are quick, that go like that. All right? Easily said on a round. There are some actions that take a full round to occur. What are those actions? If a character wants to run, so say the character's back 120 feet from the battle that's going on. Jack's 120 feet back from Mary. So he wants to get up there to her like nothing to help her out, because Mary's not a combative type. She is a rogue, and she is in trouble. So he can take a run action. That is a full round action to run. You can't do any attacks with it. You can't do any 5-foot steps after it. It takes that whole round to do it. So Jack runs at 4 times his speed. We'll say he's wearing armor, so that makes his movement speed a 20. So it's 4, well actually, is it 4 or 5? Let me make sure on the one. Because these are the things, and again, these go into the rules. I believe it's 4x, but I may be wrong, maybe 5x. And some of you may be already calling that out for me. But this is where even, let's see, run is a full round action, 188. All right, so this is where going into your rule books and having these things written down are important. Why? Because that way you know what you're doing. So let's look at a run action, 188, run. All right. Run is a full round action. If you do it, you do not also get a 5-foot step. You run in a straight line, or 3 times your speed if you're in heavy, 4 times your speed. So it's 4x. 4 times your speed in anything but heavy armor, which is 3x, which is important to note. That's why writing out these rules are important for you. So what you do, I'll show you what I do. Okay? So, let's take a look here. Did Rick write out run? Well, let's see. Rick's got cards. Why does Rick have cards? Because if he wants to do something and he wants to see what his players can do, he wants to be able to look. There's overrun. I've put all the different types of things: sunder, trip, feint, throw, splash weapon, mounted combat, what a total defense is, a disable, type of conditions, lethal damage, terrain and obstacles, and such, size modifiers, vehicle movements, night vision. There it is, run. So, I do have that. That is important to have. And I'm going to tell you that now. It's always good to have that. So, if you don't have a card, what you do, you take it and you write it out. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put run. And then I'm going to put dash full round action, no 5-foot step. And it is 4 times move, medium or less armor. And why is that important? Because, again, it helps you out with these things. Now, mind you, this video is going to be a little bit longer, and I may have to do it into 2. 3x, move, and that's heavy armor. Why is that important? And you put straight line, because you can only run in a straight line action. So, what have you done for yourself now? Let's look at this. Now you have made yourself a card that will help you when your players are doing something. They want to dispute with you. No, what do I got to do? No, it's this. No. And that's where you have these things to help you out. It's easy. Then you're not spending 10 minutes diving through a book to try to figure it out. Now, the nice thing they do is they give you a list in your books. So go to your DMG, or go to your player's handbook, or go to your core rule book if you're doing Pathfinder. They give you a list of actions. So, you ever wonder what takes how much time? They tell you how much time it takes, and does it spark an attack of opportunity? So a melee attack, moving into melee, does not provoke an attack of opportunity. However, if you try to do a ranged attack in melee reach range, it provokes an attack of opportunity. Casting a spell standing within 5 foot of an enemy will spark an attack of opportunity. So getting to know these type of rules, this is something as a DM or GM you've got to understand is combat in a turn. That is the most important thing outside of running a good story, which will be next, the next thing I mentioned, that you have to know. You have to know how a turn works. What actions can be done? What actions can't? So, for instance, Pathfinder has a lot of feats, and this is where a lot of DMs or GMs move to DMs in D&D because they don't like having to know feats. Again, write yourself a list. So any feats that count as a part of your round, in other words, takes a part of your round, so things like Sunder, or things like Vital Strike, or things like Death from Above. All these different feats that you give the cool names to that the characters can do take so much time in a round. So, for instance, my War Priest in my game of Pathfinder loves to use Death from Above. He has flying, so he flies up and drops down on people. Why? Because he gets extra modifiers to his damage. But he can only do it once a round. It's a standard action. He can't do that and have 2 other attacks, even though he has 3 attacks a round. That's the next thing to know in a round. How do attacks add up in a round? Real simple. The number of attacks you have, if you are moving and doing an attack, you only get 1. If you take a full round to stand still and attack, you get all your attacks and their bonuses. And a 5-foot step afterwards. These are things you need to know. And these are things you can learn. And that's why it's so important to get to know these things. So understanding how a round or a turn, actually a turn, they call it a turn. I call it a round because they go in rounds. A turn takes place. You need to know this for whatever system you're running. Know that. Second thing, how to make good role play. And I'm going to go through a couple points on good role play that are important. Number 1, read the material ahead of time. And don't just read it once, read it 2 or 3 times and make yourself some notes. Now, it will tell you in the boxes. So, for instance, and I'm going to use this. So, spoiler alert for anybody that does not want to know this module. Okay, on C3 right here, you will see a lined section. That lined section is what you read to your players, or paraphrase. They'll tell you, read or paraphrase. The floor of this wide square chamber is covered with tightly packed, poorly executed hieroglyphs. What could you say? As you enter the room, and it's a very wide chamber, you see that the floor is covered with tightly packed hieroglyphs that seem to be saying something. And you can paraphrase. It's fine whichever way you do it, but make it your own. Don't be robotic and read. Okay, so say I read all that text, and I do that sometimes, and then I say, okay, so what this is saying is this. You're in this area that is in a very tightly packed room. It's a large room, but it's got tightly packed hieroglyphs that are of significance that you may want to check out or look at. It's up to you what you want to suggest to your players. If they're beginning players, you may want to give them some hints and suggestions as a GM. You don't want to give away the story. You don't want to give away things that they shouldn't know. However, you can give them little hints and pointers. And I do that all the time with my group, and my group's experience. Okay, guys, so you're taking all this time to think these things out. But have you thought about this or this? And they'll sit back from there and go, crap, I didn't. Now, some people say, oh, you gave them spoilers. No, I didn't. All I did was say, another opinion is you might want to consider some other things before you just jump in. Okay? And that's okay. And like, for instance, I share with my players how combat goes against a whole squad of enemies. So in this particular battle they're fighting 1918 Russians. Well, okay, they're going to be like a swarm. The book in Pathfinder I'm reading says treat them like a swarm creature. Well, swarm creatures automatically hit. So that's something you ought to know about creature types. Swarms automatically hit, and they're immune to certain things. And so I kind of hint and remind them a little, because I don't want them just necessarily blowing all their abilities and then going, well, crap, Rick, that was no fun. How did I get corralled into this crap? I give them some little bit of hindsight. Now, I take into account what their character would know and what they wouldn't. And so you've got to play that in, too. Like some people say, oh, I would know all about these guns. Oh, you might know about flintlocks. These look strangely different to you. And you don't know why they look strangely different. So you can give little hints and pointers as you go along. But what I'm saying in this is don't be robotic. Know your module. Read the parts that are important. Know where a trap is, and know if, you can say up front, hey guys, do me a favor, before you go into the room, roll me your perception checks. This is just your acting perception check. Or in D&D, it's got a different term for it, for spotting things. Maybe a spot check, or it's so you have them roll that ahead. In fact, I have them roll it for the day. Why do I do that? And write it down on we use the erasable laminated terrain and miniatures. I have them write it on the side of that. Why? Because I can ask them, hey, Bob, what's your perception check? What's your this? And the person can look down and say, well, Bob rolled this today. Okay. So I can say, I don't give anything away, because every time you ask them in a room to roll a perception check, they're freaking out thinking it's automatically trapped, or something's going to happen, or something's going to jump out. If you have them roll it ahead of time, you can avoid that. And you can write it down as they're saying it too, so you've got it behind your shield. And you can say, okay, you are surprised by this, and gets hit. You go, no, I rolled this. Ah, but I already took this into account. I rolled this. And you can leave the roll where it is. Just do a roll on your dice tower. And then they're wondering why you're just rolling dice. Well, let them wonder. Just roll dice sometimes for the heck of it. But at least they know. So, doing little hints like that ahead of time. Know what special things are in those modules. So if there's a special creature, get to know its things. Make some notes on its abilities. So like I said, an incorporeal undead, make some notes for yourself. That way you're prepared going in. It's okay to have cheat sheets. Now don't go overboard. You don't want to have so many cheat sheets that you get lost. Keep it to 1 or 2 pages of a paper and just little scratch notes for yourself. All you want to do is remind yourself when that comes up. Okay, I got to remember that. And it makes it flow. It makes it flow a lot better. Do accents and voices. Give a life to these NPCs. Bring them to life. Have fun with it. Okay, if it sounds stupid, so what? The players will laugh and have fun anyways. I did my Russian accent for the demon that they were talking to, and he was flipping out these cards, and they were watching him do a game while he was talking to them. And he would mutter things like, ugh, the war, it's just causing such chaos. And then they would pick up and go, wait a minute, what war? Oh, just the war going on outside. Well, tell me more. It's just the war. Okay, so now you got to roll a diplomacy to start getting things going there. Heat him up a little bit. Or some other skill check. So you do a charisma skill check if you're in D&D to get them to want to give you a little more information. So that's important to know those things. Also, get to know your player's spells. Have them print off a spell list for you. It's okay for you to ask for a copy of their character. So you get to know the spells that they know and everything else. They don't like that, then you know what? Tell them pound sand. You are the GM and the DM. You want to have a copy of this for multiple reasons. Number one, if they're not there and they want to get experience, you can run their character for them. You're not going to try to kill them off, but you can run it for them. Or somebody else can run it for them because you have the character sheet there. Or because you just want to know what they have on them, so if something goes on that they don't need to know about, that you have that list and you're not constantly ruining the game and stopping things down by asking them these things. You shouldn't have to ask more than once. They should send it to you. And it's good to have. And I always do that. I say, hey, guys, in light of people missing or whatever, please send me these things. Now, one more minute. I'll take one more minute, and then we'll cut this video down. We can always do a second take on it. The other thing you need to know is you don't need to be an expert, all right? You can have your players help you if they're experienced. If they aren't experienced, then work with it and try to go through. Make sure your players know their own abilities. And do not always trust every character and player. I have players in my group I can trust implicitly, that I know read the rules, know the rules, and really do. And they will correct me if I'm wrong, or they will correct themselves. And I appreciate that. They bring that out. They don't get upset that I may not have that on the top of my head. We're that kind of group that we watch out for each other. But we have one player that likes to sneak things and likes to do his own thing. So we have to check him and all as a group cross-check him, because otherwise he'll get out of hand. So keep these things in mind. I hope this helps with the beginning of the GMing and DMing. I hope to do more on this. So this is part 1 of beginning GMs and DMs. Thanks again.